Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's another episode of the Couch Dwellers. I'm joined here today with
Myke.
Nice intro there, Myke. I'm Ryan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me redo it. Hey guys, it's Myke. Get buckled up because we're. Good Lord. It's an intro, Ryan. Okay.
Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We have a pretty good podcast, I think, today.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're going to handle some conversations about Tim Burton, Ryan's favorite director. We're going to talk about live-action remakes and what's going on in Hollywood. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what we're excited to see coming up in the theaters. So
it'll probably be, for me, a Tim Burton film.
Yeah. I know you're excited about Beetlejuice 2 that's coming out.
I am not, actually. I'm really worried.
Oh, yeah? Did you see they're making that sequel?
I've heard about it. I haven't seen how far they're into it.
Yeah.
I guess I got it confused with The Labyrinth because, the Labyrinth got canceled, I guess, in part because David Bowie passed away. They were going to do a sequel of that, to my knowledge.
Oh, that would be actually a good film to do just a reboot on.
Mm-hmm.
Who would direct that, though? Who would you want to direct?
Man, it'd have to be Timothy Walter Burton.
Ryan is pushing hard on that segue into our first segment.
Let's talk about it. Hey, let's just get it all out in the air.
Let's just go ahead and air it out. Okay, Ryan, what's your beef with Tim Burton?
Is that he used to be really fucking good, and now he's really fucking bad. I just don't know what happened to him, man. He was all about practicality a little bit, I should say, in the beginning.
Practical effects and stuff.
Oh, yeah. And I guess it came to me a couple weeks ago. It came on TV. But I saw Charlie and the Chocolate Factory for the first time.
Yeah.
I skipped it when it came out to theaters. I even skipped it even harder when it came out to Blu-ray or DVD back then.
It wasn't Johnny Depp's best role, I would say.
Oh, God, it's terrible. And I'm honestly, and people are probably going to crucify me, I'm not the biggest fan of the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's
Willy Wonka.
It's good, okay, but I don't know. A lot of people seem to think it's like the biggest game changer of all time, but it's just an okay movie to me. It's not bad, but it's not amazing.
Yeah. I'm indifferent. I like it at times. I mean, if it's on, I'll watch it, but I'm not going, you know what I want to watch today? Willy Wonka with Gene Wilder. You know what I mean?
I can see why it's iconic, you know?
Yeah, it's great. I fall into this weird time frame where movies that came out at a certain time, I'm just not interested in just because it's not relevant to my childhood. Yeah. And then now, because my movie watching time is so limited, I'm very peculiar about what I put on to watch, you know?
Yep.
I don't want to waste my time. I'm like, I think I saw this when I was 6. Yeah, I'll skip it. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I've got nothing against it. But,
yeah.
I mean, it is iconic. But
I kind of take the same approach. It's not, I don't know, it was never an amazing movie, but every great once in a while I watch it, but it's just, I don't know. But anyway, long story short, the Timothy Walter Burton version of it is god-awful. Even from the very beginning, it's showing how, like, chocolate bars are made and stuff, and all of it's CG, and it's, like, really shitty. Like,
well, it was early. What year was that?
There's no excuse. I want to say it was, like, 2005. It's between 2005 and 2007, but there's still no excuse, because the CG is, like, worse than the movie Ants. It's terrible. It is terrible. And I was like, good God, what the fuck were they doing? I wouldn't care if they just would have done close-ups of, chocolate being poured into a vat or something. I don't care.
Right.
Make it more believable.
Well, that was kind of the problem is Tim Burton has always been a practical effects guy. He would even say that he's been a practical. But I think the things that he goes after is so grandiose. You know what I mean? Like, when you look at the set dressing for any Tim Burton film, pre-2000 or whatever, that stuff was like, people put care into it. It was handmade, it was a big deal. And then I think he just fell victim to Hollywood's increasing push to lower budgets and utilize CG when really practical is the way to go. I mean, they train those squirrels. You know what I mean? What was it? The nut sorting thing. They train them to do that, like 12 or 16 squirrels or something like that. Hand train some squirrels, but you won't make chocolate. I mean, you can't just rent out Hershey's for the day. Come on,
That's my point. And from the very beginning of this movie, you're just kind of let down. And then, of course, the characters are all blah. as I said before, the first one's not really amazing, but man, it demolishes the remake so good.
Yeah. Here's the problem, okay? We're looking at Tim Burton, and the Tim Burton that we love is the Batman movies, Edward Scissorhands,
Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow.
And that was 1999, so that's
right.
I was going to say that's his last, to me personally, that's his last great film.
But then he crosses over and he does a more lighthearted bubblegum version of Tim Burton.
Yes.
And we're used to the dark, gothic, you know.
And I don't know if that was something that he did. I guess he just had a midlife crisis. But
if you watch Edward Scissorhands, there's a lot of pastel colors and it's really bright. But I think that's really to contrast like the absolute lack of color in Edward's life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Minus Vincent Price's character.
Yeah.
He wore some cool colors. There's just a lot going on. That movie was great. I think the thing, like everything that we loved pre Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
And there was another movie that came out after that was decent, right?
I'd have to look. So you had Sleepy Hollow. Let's skip ahead. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
A little bit before that, though, he had done Big Fish.
Yeah, Big Fish.
Planet of the Apes.
Right, 2001.
Yes, and then so going forward after Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, now I will say this stop motion animation or claymation is really good. I believe it's claymation. Corpse Bride. That was pretty good.
Right. Yeah, stop motion. Yeah.
And this is where it again started kind of going back to how Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was. Well, I shouldn't say this one, not Sweeney Todd, but Alice in Wonderland, Dark Shadows. Those two are definitely kind of just like, you know.
Yeah. Well, I didn't care for the Alice in Wonderland stuff. I didn't care for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but I can't really judge Tim Burton on 3 films. You know what I mean?
I can. No, I'm good.
I remember seeing the original Frankenweenie, the short film that came out in 1984. I remember seeing that as a kid. And I was like, I think I'm supposed to be scared of this, but I kind of like it. I remember seeing it at my grandma's house. And when he made the stop motion version of it, whenever that was, what was that, 2008 or something like that?
Actually, 2012.
2012, wow. I was kind of excited, but at the same time, I was already at that level where I was like, do I really want to relive my childhood? You know what I mean? Some of us don't have the greatest childhoods, right?
I was going to say, you keep rehashing this. Like, do I really want to relive what I went through?
No, I mean, that was a fun experience. I remember watching that and, The Lone Ranger. Ironically, Johnny Depp, there you go.
Yes.
God, but yeah, man, I mean, early Tim Burton stuff is the stuff that we grew up on, and so we appreciate. Yeah. You know, he started as an intern with Disney.
Really?
So, yeah, it would only make sense that he would later get into some of these more illustrated and cartoon type stuff.
I'll tell you something you may not know. He was director of Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
I did know that.
85.
Yeah.
And that's a great movie.
That was like his jumping off point.
Yeah, it actually was. Because right before that was his short for Frankenweenie.
Yeah. So Pee-wee's Big Adventure was like, what, 86, 87?
85.
85, okay.
But yeah, so he did that, and that really is, it's a pretty colorful film, actually. It's a good movie. It's funny, and it's...
Right.
And what makes it so good, too, and I feel this way about Beetlejuice and the Batman, and when I think about Pee-wee's Big Adventure, too, is they're kind of a little dark on the comedy and some...
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So...
Yeah, he definitely has a style, and he's noticeable. Like, when he does something, it's not like anybody could step in middle of the production and take it all the way home. I mean, Tim Burton is Tim Burton.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's got a look to it.
But I think people have fallen out of love with what he's produced in recent years.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah. I haven't seen the new Dumbo movie.
I haven't either.
I want to see it just to see it.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're going to talk about it, I'm sure, whenever we get into the live action remakes of some of these animated classics that we grew up on. But that kind of stuff now is just not I'm not the target audience for that. But I remember seeing, even though I'm not a big musical guy, I remember seeing Sweeney Todd, and I kind of liked it for what it was. You know what I mean? I kind of feel bad for hating on the dude. It's because his earlier work I absolutely loved it.
I grew up on it just like you, and it just was, his earlier work is amazing to me.
Yeah.
When I think Batman, there's only 2 genuine Batman series as far as live action goes that I really like. And
right.
It's definitely Christopher Nolan's, and then it's his.
Yeah.
Those are the only two that make sense. And Michael Keaton also was perfect as Batman in those roles, and just
which he started working with him because of Beetlejuice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not excited. I should be, but I'm not excited about the new Beetlejuice just because.
Right.
I can't think of. I'm really trying hard here. I'm sure there's some that I've kind of enjoyed, but I can't think of it. But I can't really think of movies that I grew up on that have been rehashed with the same actors, and just been like, wow, that was great. I'm glad they did that. Only one I can think of is when they did Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
When they did the sequel to that with Jim Carrey and
a Dumb and Dumber 2 or something like that. Yeah.
And it just was not the same.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that's because, when we look back at older films, things that worked back then was because society was kind of a little bit more open to corny and goofy stuff like that.
Yeah, the idea of comedy has changed.
Oh, for sure.
At least, one thing is because we've gotten older.
Mm-hmm.
And so the comedy that we appreciate has gotten not much more sophisticated, but it's at least matured slightly.
Yeah.
And we appreciate the subtle nuances of social commentary and things that we can relate to now, as like being married and being parents, and you know what I mean? So a guy getting hit in the nuts with a rake is still funny, but not as funny, You
ever seen that video where the bear's like...
Yes, he gets hit in the sack with that rope. Yeah, I feel for it. I can't watch one of those nut check videos without going like, oh, like every time, like I feel it, you feel it in the pit of your stomach. Even for the bear, I was like, God, that's got a smarts right there. Oh, man. But yeah, I think our sense of humor, maybe not at all.
Yeah, it's really not changed much there, Mike.
Yeah, apparently. Oh, man. So how do you want to close this out on Tim Burton? I mean, what's your stance on it?
God, I wish if somehow one of our 2 listeners could somehow get him this podcast and he could hear me. I would plead with him that if he's going to do Beetlejuice, that he does pretty much all practical effects and try to keep it as close to what the original was.
Right.
If it's not, I just don't see how it's going to work.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, Ryan, it's by the time it releases, it'll have been a decade and a half since his first dealings with CG.
Yeah.
I mean, so 15 years, a lot has advanced in 15 years.
Well, see, then that's where I'm going to have to be like, people always go, oh man, the CG is so good nowadays. Look at Spider-Man and the fucking Marvel universe.
Yeah.
And when they're flying through the city, you can even tell that's fake. I'm like, it looks fake to me because the camera motions don't look realistic. The body movements are too fluid with people. They look like rubber sack dolls or something out there. It just
sack dolls.
Every time
those are pretty fluid.
every time I'm watching an action scene in any of these movies, I immediately am taken out of them because nothing looks realistic to me. So I'm not looking forward to. I don't care how much advancement they've had. The only people to ever really do it well was with Jurassic Park, but they also did it because they mixed it with live action seamlessly. And then also, for the most part, a lot of the dinosaurs didn't have these big, crazy movements that were super fast, unrealistic.
Yeah.
So,
right. It was like either far away, where they're like, we'll get away with blurring this out, or it was really close up and they use animatronics.
Exactly. And when you think of the T-Rex, when you first see the T-Rex in Jurassic Park, and first you see an actual practical hand just, pulling down the wire. Right. And then the next thing you see is him swallowing the goat, another practical effect.
Yeah.
And then the first time you see CG is when he busts through the fence and there's all this lightning, rain. They use that to mask the CG a little bit, but the movements and everything, it looks real.
Sure.
I still look at that and I'm like, man, that is... I feel like that's peak CGI to me personally.
Yeah.
Unless you look at your favorite guy,
Fincher.
And what does he do? He uses little small subtle things to change something.
Yeah, he's not making a Jar Jar Binks out there that is a character that's constantly interacting with lighting and atmosphere and stuff like that.
I'd have to say his is probably, not that it's the prettiest CG, but I think his may be some of the best CG right now because of his subtle use. Had you never pointed it out to me, if I'm just watching it, I'm like, wow, it's a really pretty area, but who would have thought that he CG'd just a couple of trees in the background just to change his scene a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
That's
smart. He started as a VFX artist. He worked on
That's crazy.
Return of the Jedi as a kid. You know what I mean? That's just hard to believe that, and now he's a super prolific director, you know. But yeah, I do love Fincher's use of CG just because you can rarely tell that it's ever there. You know, I think that's a good way,
and that's a smart way to do it. That's the way it should be done.
That's what it's for, really.
Yeah.
I mean, what we're getting used to though is like if you watch on television now, unless it's an old show, animation's completely changed.
Yeah,
you rarely see drawn animation.
No,
it's mostly computer animated.
Yeah,
you know, and I think we got spoiled when Toy Story came out, and everybody's like, "Wow, this was." If you look at it now, it looks terrible. You know, the first Toy Story, but it was revolutionary at its time.
Oh,
you know?
It was. So was Ants.
Yeah. Oh man, Ants was bad. You had A Bug's Life that came out by Pixar, and then who was Ants? Was like DreamWorks.
I think it was DreamWorks.
Yeah, and it's DreamWorks was like, you know, they were probably working on Ants before A Bug's Life came out. And they're like, oh God, they stole it. Like, just push it out, guys. Don't smooth any of this. Just push it out. We didn't spend all that money on Sylvester Stallone for nothing. Oh man. But yeah, it feels like now that whenever, especially because I have kids, and all the kids shows I see is like, oh, this is all computer animated.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. So let's segue into our next topic here, which is cartoons to live action remakes. Yeah, which is literally the newest and greatest thing. Hollywood was like, you know what? I've got a great idea.
Yeah.
We're going to take one of the best eras of cartoons.
Right.
I want to say they call it the Renaissance era of Walt Disney, pretty much.
Yeah.
Which were like Aladdin, Lion King, whatever else. Jungle Book was a little bit before that. But that's Disney's new thing. How are they going to print money this year?
Right. Yeah.
It's
a live action remake using CG primarily. Yeah, I mean, just today I saw they released an image from Pinocchio, the new live action remake of Pinocchio. So
yeah,
I just don't know, man. I don't care enough, and it may be because we're guys.
Yeah. I
don't care enough to really watch this. I remember when Cinderella came out. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to see that. You know what I mean? That's like all these are Beauty and the Beast or whatever.
Yeah.
All these came out and it was like, well, my girls are too young to really even care, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't care. And it's funny that they keep doing these, but a lot of them, it's not like anything's changed the world. Every time they come out, people are like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It seems like every single live action remake that's come out has always had mixed feelings.
It has, but I guess...
Why do they keep doing it?
Well, they do it because it keeps printing money.
Yeah, it's money because it's like, oh, they're so excited. And then everybody spends their wad on going and seeing this and taking the kids and buying the outfits. And now they've got a chance to resell the toys and, you know what I mean? And then they go and see it. And pretty much every single... I can't think of a live action remake so far that people have been floored by.
Yeah. I think they got close on Beauty and the Beast because that one's kind of iconic, and it looked like, and they did. They kept that one really close to the original. I mean, it almost played out scene for scene. If you
that's what they've been doing. Yeah. Wasn't Lion King the same way?
I think Lion King is pretty much the same way.
Yeah,
and it just feels, I don't know, man. And those are kind of recent. If you really think about it, those films, I know they're probably 15, 20 plus years now old. I kind of, not that I still support it, but I kind of get like Pinocchio, Dumbo. Those are extremely old films.
Right.
That are, and have they done
Cinderella? Cinderella's old too, man.
Do they do Snow White? I know they did Snow White and
the
the
Huntsman. Yeah,
but was that like for real?
I don't know that was like Disney though. That was pretty.
It was pretty cool. Now that one I kind of like because it was a little. it was a lot different than what the cartoon one was.
Right, Snow White was played by Jason Statham, and you know, I mean, like it's obviously not geared for the same audience. But he's like, "Yeah, we're going to kill you." I was like, a wig on.
I'd pay great money. That's what Hollywood needs to do. I'd pay great money for that.
I could see. Well, like it reminds me of that SNL digital short of Bambi, where The Rock played Bambi. It's like hunting season dog. Oh, that's funny. That would be great. I wish they'd do stuff like that. That'd be hilarious.
It would be, man.
I feel like in the '90s they would have done that.
Oh, you know they would have.
Yeah, they would have been like, let's make it absolutely serious. Jason Statham, wear this blonde wig. Yeah. You know?
They would have definitely done it.
Dude, and they would have played it cold, you know?
Yeah.
And the comedy would be in like, this is ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah, the 90s were great.
They were. But now we're on to the whatever years you want to call this, and they're not so great.
Generation Z, is that what they're calling it now?
It may be. And this is not to say we're blaming young people.
No, it's obviously it's old people in Hollywood that are making these decisions going, you know what would be a good idea? Yeah. You know that movie that was so popular 60 years ago?
Yeah.
Let's redo it.
All CG.
Yeah.
But we're going to call it live action.
Yeah. There is absolutely no live action in it. That's funny. Like, you know, the one live action remake that I did like was Netflix did Mowgli.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of like that. And it had some pretty big names in there.
Yeah.
And
some of them were like Bill Murray was blue and all that. Or is that Jungle Book?
Oh, I think that was Jungle Book. Okay. Mowgli had, what's his name? Andy Serkis or whatever. Who played the guy? I can't think of how to say his name, but he played Smeagol and
I know who you're talking
Planet
about.
of the Apes.
I don't know his name
like
either,
that.
but he's a method actor when it comes to CG stuff.
Yeah, I think he was blue, and Christian Bale was, what was the Panther's name?
Oh, God, I can't remember.
I don't know.
But,
anyways.
And that was another thing. That movie came out then pretty close to the Jungle Book.
Yeah.
It's like a remake and then another remake.
Right.
Like almost back to back.
But this one was definitely a little... I think with some of these stories, you kind of got to treat them with kids' gloves. And Mowgli was a little more rough around the edges, and that's probably why I liked it. Yeah. You know? I just don't watch movies now for nostalgia.
No.
I want to feel something, you know.
And that seems to be what Hollywood wants, not your latter part of that, but Hollywood wants you to feel nostalgia.
Yeah, they want to go, oh man, they're trying to double dip and go, well, you know, remember that generation that grew up on The Lion King? Because I saw The Lion King in theaters.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and they go, we'll get them to go see it again.
Yeah.
You know.
And I just don't feel like, and maybe we're outliers here, but I just don't feel the connection at all. And again, maybe it's because we're guys, I don't know, but it's like I don't feel like taking my kids to see the live action. If anything, I'd be like, let's buy that on video on demand or stream it and let's watch the original, because there's just so much more passion in those. They're just more fulfilling to me.
It felt like they were trying to do something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now it feels like a cash grab.
It is 100% a cash grab. And that's the issue with Hollywood.
That's the problem.
That's the issue. I still don't understand how Hollywood can never separate something and just say, you know what, it's okay for us to make a profit, but let's make something good and original.
Yeah, let's make a high quality film and then make all your money on selling toys from China.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Make cheaply made toys, because let's be real, they only have to last 6 months anyways. Kids are going to grow out of them. They're not going to care.
Yeah.
Make all your money on merchandise, but at least give us something good.
Hey, the thing is, though, they could still make money from theater ticket sales.
Yeah.
But they just want to keep rehashing stuff. And it's really, I don't know how it's not gotten old. It's just like me and you were talking about how, and we may get crucified here, but we don't care for the Marvel Universe stuff because it's like every 3 months there's another Marvel Universe movie.
Right.
And it's connecting the number 50th character in line to be in some big battle.
Right.
And it just, good Lord. And they milked that for every penny they could.
Yeah, but I mean, you take a look at that, and I'll go ahead because we've bitched enough. Go ahead and segue. If you look at the Joker movie that's coming out, which I'm very excited about.
I am too.
DC is handling some of its characters really well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Suicide Squad had some mixed reviews, but as far as like everybody knows, the Nolan films were fantastic.
They were amazing
for Batman. And I really liked Man of Steel.
Yeah.
I loved that, man.
Yeah.
And I was, at the time, really huge fan of Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
And so I feel like he did really well with that. It blows my mind that he shoots his films with one camera. Wow. You know what I mean? And when I watched Man of Steel and he's fighting, what's his name, Captain Zod or whatever, and some of these fight sequences, I'm like, and maybe he didn't shoot the fight sequences with just one camera, but even if you look at Watchmen or whatever, also in DC Universe, all these films where it's like there's only one shot. Yeah. And for like an indie filmmaker like we are, that's how we shoot. We got one camera. You know what I mean? We don't have $100 million, you know. I'm sure more for some of these superhero movies, but I mean, something about that really piqued my interest with the way he was making films, and so I really got into it. I appreciated that. I liked the religious iconography of Man of Steel, and they played into that, not in a churchy way, but like more of a subtle intrigue. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I really love how DC handled it, but Marvel is just like, hey, let's. How do we pump out a movie a year or two movies a year?
Is that a Disney product? I can't remember.
Yeah,
that's why. It's the same thing with Star Wars. Like when they first rebooted it, I was like, The Force Awakens, the trailer was amazing. The movie was amazing, and honestly, it kind of rehashed kind of a same storyline from the originals. You know?
Yeah.
But it was really good, and of course we got, what's his name out of it? Is it, God, I can't think of his name. Oh my God, played the Kylo Ren.
Harrison Ford.
No.
Adam Driver.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Kylo Ren was a great original character. I had fun with it, but then again, they're pushing them out. It feels like
now it's like the Solo movie, the Chewbacca movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're gonna milk it for every penny they can, man.
Yeah.
They bought the rights for $2 billion, and then they made that $2 billion back in some in like the first couple of years, you know.
Yeah, I would imagine so, because who isn't always buying Star Wars T-shirts?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. It's such a big thing.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I was excited too. Not every year, but at least every other year, I'm watching the Star Wars episodes, at least 1 through 6, back to back.
Yeah.
I mean, episode 1 and 2, I'm kind of just like, well, nah, you know, it's going on, but I'm really doing something else. But 3, 4, 5, and 6, they get pretty good. You know what I mean? And yeah, the new stuff is the same way. They're like, hey, let's just release a film a year, and look, maybe it's not their fault. Maybe it's our fault, us, the consumer. Maybe we demand that.
I think it's definitely a mixture of both. You know, Disney they own Marvel, they own goddamn, for Star Wars, I don't know what it's called. Lucas.
Oh yeah, Lucasfilm.
They own that. Video games, they own EA Studios now.
Yeah.
And if you look at everything now, everything's made to be pumped out. Just like EA pumps out Madden every year, but it's the same thing every year. But we all buy it because we want the updated roster.
Right. Yeah.
$60.
If I'm buying Madden, I want to be able to play as LeBron. Yeah. Dang it.
He'd be a pretty cool football player, honestly.
He'd probably murder, man. Dude, the guy's a monster.
He's a physical freak.
Look, I stopped caring about football after Tecmo Super Bowl. Okay, you know. NES. Another couple films I'm excited about seeing is It. I'm gonna go see that Friday. And Ready or Not, which is out already.
Which one is Ready or Not?
Ready or Not is the guy and girl get married. And okay. And the family's like, hey, this is, you know, just what a tradition that we do. You hide, we try to catch you. But in reality, I think they're a secret cult that's like trying to sacrifice a virgin or something like that.
Oh, yeah. I remember that trailer. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, man. It looked pretty cool. So, and it looked like it had enough tension and terror. And at the same time, there were comedic relief going on. So I'm excited to see that. I do want to see that.
You kind of gloss over It. I mean, we both know it's going to be amazing.
It too, yeah. I saw through Reddit this morning, people were like warning about epileptic seizures.
Really?
Yeah. So there must be a bunch of flashing lights and stuff like that to beware of. But
dang.
Yeah. It's, I fortunately don't suffer from that. So. But it still is unnerving, and that's probably why they used it. You know, there's been films that will use stuff to make you uneasy, physically uneasy, to make you feel some of the dread going on with the characters. Hereditary did that.
Yeah.
The soundtrack. If you saw it in theaters, which I did, they were playing notes that were too low to audibly hear in the soundtrack, but they were playing them too low to where you would feel them. There were dissonant notes, so you would feel like a pressure in your stomach, like an uneasy or nausea.
Man, that is so smart.
Yeah, man.
Me and you talked about it. We love that movie. And of course, you got to see Midsommar. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, man. That is like I keep telling you too. The first little bit of that film is terrifying. God,
I got to watch it. And it's going to sound morbid. I've told you this before, but you know, they did some things that were shocking in Hereditary. Yeah. That they really haven't done in a long time in Hollywood, which, not to be more, but, you know, when the girl gets her, not to spoil anything here, but girl gets her head knocked off in the car, you know.
It shows it.
It shows it. And
there's a lot of that in Midsommar, too.
It's crazy.
It's just, but here's the thing. They used to show it, and people got desensitized, so they did the thing where they would cut away.
Yeah.
Well, I won't say that's actually the case of everything, because Psycho had like 76 cuts just during the shower scene, like 76 different clips put together, different angles and stuff like that. Not once did you see the knife going in, you know.
Wow.
But yeah, I do feel like some of the older films, like 80s and 90s horror, showed it all.
Oh yeah,
you know, especially because a lot of slasher movies were coming out, and so there was a time when it was better left up to the imagination.
Yeah.
You know, and now we're kind of coming back around where let's show it. Let's give them the nitty gritty, baby. You know? So,
Eli Roth, Hostel is going to be getting a remake.
Yeah, torture porn type stuff. Yeah. I can't really watch that type stuff.
I was genuine, and we'll end on this because this would be a good subject for our next podcast. But man, when I went into that, I was like, it's going to be a pretty cool little movie. I was not expecting it to be what it ended up being. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. I remember seeing it too, and it's like nauseous. Yeah. You know, the whole time watching it, going like, oh, God, hurry up.
The worst to me is the torch to the eyeball. I'm like, oh, this is the worst.
Oh, man. Something about, I can't get into it. That's why I've convinced myself I could never be a serial killer. You know, it's just like...
He thought about it.
I thought I was really thinking about it, and I thought, maybe not. I don't like to hurt people.
Nasty.
I want to get my hands dirty. There's only way. But yeah, I don't really find a lot of enjoyment out of watching that. I'd rather something like that happen, and then me just go like, yeah, I know he probably cut their neck or whatever, you know, and slit their throat, whatever. I don't have to see it. You know what I mean? I don't want to know precisely how many ounces of blood someone loses when an arrow goes through their throat. You know? Just cut away from it.
Well, on that note, I say we cut it out right now.
Let's just cut it out.
Well,
slice it.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us again for episode number 2.
002.
I like that. And we're definitely going to see y'all again, hopefully.
Thanks for listening to the Couch Dwellers Podcast.